Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I think we can just dive right on in. So we are all here for the majority of the week listening to a slew of experts talk about AI, cybersecurity. We just had this amazing panel on fraud. Why should people be listening to you guys? What are you seeing that maybe others aren't seeing that will be new and intriguing for this? And I'll start with Evan and then move to Asheem.
Sure. So my name is Evan Reiser. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Abnormal Security. We're a 7-year-old company. We're deployed at about 20% of the Fortune 500. So I spend the majority of my time talking to Fortune 500 CISOs and CIOs about cybercrime, and we're definitely in a crazy era now that AI is becoming more prevalent everywhere.
Yeah. And then Asheem?
I'm Asheem Chandna. I'm a partner at Greylock, early stage venture capital firm. And I think the reason to be listening in particular to Evan is because he, I don't know how many people here know the name of Abnormal AI, which is the company Evan founded, but it is one of the fastest growing software companies out there, one of the 2 fastest growing companies in cyber. How many customers today? Over 3,000 customers?
Yeah, over 3,000.
Growing at, close to triple digit, growth rates. And Evan started this company 6 years ago now, or 7 years ago?
7.
7 years ago, and
which is like 70 years in AI, right?
Yeah, and before AI was hot, Evan's actually the ultimate outsider. He and his co-founder were working at Twitter and working on a lot of the machine learning algorithms at Twitter, and then they saw the opportunity in cyber and basically brought AI into cyber. So it's and then what they've done today is just it speaks for itself. Yeah.
Totally. No, I think that makes a lot of sense, and I feel like for a lot of us who are here, unless this is your first panel on cybersecurity, then I'm honored. But for a lot of us here, I think we're very familiar with the tug and pull in this debate, right? We hear a lot about how AI is going to help cyber criminals speed up their attacks. They can write phishing emails in a matter of seconds rather than maybe minutes or hours, depending on how much research they put into it. And then we also hear the flip side, right? That AI will be helpful for cyber defenders who are overwhelmed with just the sheer amount of data that they have to shift through and the warning notifications. I'm curious for you guys kind of where we are in that tug and pull, like I guess 2+ years into the ChatGPT universe. What is maybe the status of that?
Well, I'd say generally, and she'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, please start.
I'll kick it off first.
Yeah.
I think AI is certainly transforming cybersecurity. I think there's kind of 3 big impacts. One is that there's criminals today that maybe didn't have a lot of technical skills, maybe speak English. ChatGPT is the best thing that's ever happened to them, or that's like any petty criminal to now become a cyber criminal. I think the second one is AI obviously increases just productivity of doing stuff. That includes sending out more cyber attacks. And the third thing, which I think is most scary for me, is that AI is able to create attacks that are so sophisticated that humans can't detect it, right? It's kind of beyond the observation or perception skills of humans. So I think those are kind of the 3 things that all kind of cross-multiply together that make AI a lot scary in this new world. What we see, historically criminals have been the first to adopt new technologies. Typically the defenders lag behind a couple years. We're seeing that today where, again, if you're a criminal, ChatGPT is the best thing that's ever happened to you. You can send out phishing emails at scale and they're better than you've ever written in the past. A lot of bigger organizations are just slower to adopt new technology, and so we're in a window of time right now that I think is pretty, scary for the world. But I think the defenders are going to catch up, and we'll probably get to a better spot.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and just to add briefly, I would say, I feel like we're kind of entering an era where there's going to be a theme of good AI versus bad AI, and just like AI is going to be applied for a lot of good purposes, and it's really going to advance everybody's life here. It's also going to be applied, unfortunately, on the other side. And if you look at who are the bad guys are primarily nation states that are very, very well financed, and have small armies of people, working to attack, digitally. And then for-profit criminals, right, who are also very well financed because these businesses are very profitable. And so if you just look at putting AI in the hands of those people and kind of what's coming from here on, right, I think we really haven't seen anything yet, just in terms of sophistication of attacks, both in terms of volume and also in terms of targeted attacks. And we actually had a board meeting last week at Abnormal, and Evan and his co-founder Sanjay were showing us just some new tools that can be built and how easy it is, right? Like I would say for an average engineer with, maybe like 2 hours of work, right? The type of tools that you can build, and then how you can use these tools to kind of launch attacks. And so I just think, we're headed into an era where all of us just need to be I'd say just a lot more careful about how we work digitally, and it is a very challenging time for organizations because it's very asymmetric. Organizations spend a lot of money on these defenses, but you just need one thing to kind of go wrong, right? And I would say, end of the day, it is all about humans and protecting humans. And unfortunately, social engineering attacks or just kind of tricking humans, is just kind of the one thing that you need to kind of go wrong, and everything kind of falls apart. Many of us might have read about what happened at Disney, a couple of weeks ago, and we can come back and talk more about that too. Just again, somebody made a honest mistake, and you look at kind of the ramifications of that. Yeah.
Just one thing to underscore: it is a very asymmetric game, right? Yeah. Criminals have infinite ability to experiment and make mistakes. They only have to get it right once, where the good guys have to get it right every day, 24/7. And so it's kind of an unfair game.
Totally. And of course you add AI, and it just makes it even easier for criminals to, launch attacks and launch even more of them, right? They're spending less time, they're maybe spending less resources, and can just keep emailing, and everything looks legitimate, right? They can Google who I am, they can figure out who my manager is, all that fun stuff. And these are very real, which is a great world to live in. I guess maybe now that we've sufficiently scared everyone, I am wondering, from what you guys are seeing, what is maybe the most promising thing you are seeing in the AI defense space that is working or could work if there's someone in an organization who is sitting here that hasn't really had the time to look into this yet?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say maybe give a general thing and then a more specific thing. I think generally, AI is very good at using data to make decisions. I think the reason I'm a little more optimistic long term, despite maybe the scary short term world, is I think defenders will have a long term data advantage. There's more data inside the organization that can be used to identify inappropriate behavior or malicious things than a criminal can see from the outside. So even though, as Asheem said, there'll be a huge rise of new software that allows criminals to do more stuff, I think in the end of the day, the good guys are going to win. I think specifically, and I know this sounds very self-promotional, and I acknowledge the cliche of a CEO coming on stage and saying their own thing, but I do think email security is an area that is a place where there's a lot of opportunities to win right now. We're at the HumanX conference, right? Humans are very vulnerable and accessible, right? Everyone in this room can receive an email from a stranger on the internet that can now be personalized with AI. Using all the data inside an organization to understand the kind of normal behaviors, that's where we've seen a lot of impact for AI to defend against phishing, fraud, social and account takeover. So yeah, at the risk of sounding too self-promotional, that's where I'm seeing kind of one of the biggest wins right now.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and I'll maybe just add 2 points. First one, just echo what Evan said, and we'd be remiss if we didn't mention. I feel I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this. I think many folks here in the audience, your companies are already protected by Abnormal. You may not know that, but if you're not, you should go back and ask your IT teams. That's kind of one, just because going back to what Evan said, end of the day, what your team's really trying to do is protect you guys, as employees in your companies. And we've got a technology here that's highly, has high efficacy. So that's kind of one piece. The second piece I would say is everyone here really should deploy two-factor authentication. It is not foolproof. There are many ways to break through it as well, and there's sophisticated attacks against two-factor auth. But if you aren't doing two-factor auth, it's kind of crazy, right? So just to kind of say that, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, it sounds like very basic cybersecurity advice, but when people ask me all the time, my friends, they say, hey, what should I do for cybersecurity? You seem like you know about this. There's a lot of fancy AI stuff that's appropriate for a big organization. But for individuals, just the basic stuff, two-factor authentication, password manager. We have a rule at our company, no human-generated passwords. Like really basic stuff goes a long way.
Yeah, and really what you're going to see in your systems, right, for your IT teams and your security teams that are protecting you guys in the workplace, you're going to see increasing deployment of AI into multiple layers, right? And Abnormal is an early example of that, but you're going to see other examples emerge. And what your teams should really be doing is leveraging these technologies to protect you guys.
And I'd say more broadly where AI is a big opportunity in cybersecurity is it's really about protecting humans, right? Email is one example. There's lots of other places, whether it's identity or data loss or even insider threats. AI is very good at understanding the patterns of normal behavior
Yeah.
and looking for things that are a little bit, fishy or weird. And
That's right.
That's kind of what half the job is for cybersecurity, looking for things that are a little bit inappropriate or high risk. And so I think we'll see kind of AI go transform a broad range of categories inside cybersecurity.
Yeah, and maybe just to add to that,
Yeah.
right, I would say like another theme that's coming, right, is see today if you see what's going on, right, is for those of you that work in mid-sized large companies, you've got security teams that are tasked to deploy technologies to protect you, and these teams today, so it's humans versus humans. It's kind of the battle going on. There are teams with varying levels of technology, and humans are working in a very sophisticated way, sitting in foreign countries, again either in government buildings or in criminal organizations, right? And they're attacking you guys. So today it's kind of humans versus humans, and it's an asymmetric battle. And most companies are losing this battle. They're just not equipped to fight it, right? I think what's coming now is it's really going to be AI on the other side coming at at your organizations. So it's actually going to be impossible for your organizations to fight this back and have any chance unless they also deploy AI. And it's really going to be AI versus AI. That's kind of what we're headed into. And and there's going to be growing sophistication. And the good guys better keep deploying AI at the right level, because the bad guys will learn how to use it, because there's a lot of money involved in this. Money and/or geopolitical gain, right?
And I think, Asheem, if you said that like 2 years ago,
Yeah.
people probably in the room would have like laughed a little bit. So that sounds like
Yeah.
science fiction. Or I think I saw a movie about that. But look what's happening in kind of AI-powered software engineering, right? If you just go on Twitter and search for cursor, right? You see people with very little software engineering skills building these applications, that are pretty impressive in a matter of minutes or hours. And so if you kind of just imagine that as like a proxy for what the bad guys are doing, right?
Yeah.
We're going to have more, with the same way we have agent, powered software engineering workflows, building products. We're going to have AI agents, the bad AI,
That's
building these
right.
attacks, right? That are going to be a big problem. It'll need AI to stop it.
And the other piece, just to add to that, right, is like I would say, we're a very interesting place geopolitically, right? And you could say we're in a different place today than we were even 3 months ago. And so just, if the world gets more complex geopolitically, digital warfare is something you're going to see implemented more. And it's kind of interesting, without being more specific, right? But I would say many of the US's allies actually have more understanding of what's going on in our digital networks than our adversaries. And they've historically been our allies, but if things get more complex, there's a lot of unknown ahead in just the way all this plays out. But digital warfare, will play an increasing role, versus kinetic or physical.
And the scary thing in digital warfare too is it's not just the nation states that are the victims, right? One of the strategies is to go disrupt businesses and financial systems and power supplies and water
That's
supply.
right, yeah.
So kind of it does affect our day-to-day lives more than you might think.
Yeah. So I guess with all of that context.
And actually, I'm going to add something else, not to scare people at a different dimension, but just mention one thing some folks here might find interesting. If you look at our physical systems in the US and look at things like water supplies and local state governments, these systems actually they're quite antiquated, and they have very poor protection around them. And I would say, just generally speaking, they're more poorly protected than the average large enterprise in the US. And so there's a lot of data out there, and I've been in other companies where we've seen data firsthand, where in many of these water systems around the US, actually attackers are actually lurking in these systems.
Yeah.
And with the right tooling, people can see attackers lurking in there. They don't do anything, but they're actually in these networks. So it's actually super scary, and this is, for people who are insiders in these things, they understand this very, very well, that in many of the physical systems in the US, these systems are antiquated, they have poor protection, they don't have the money or the sophistication of the people or the budgets to protect these systems. And so it's actually, it's super interesting, like just in terms of where this could actually play in an extreme scenario. Yeah.
Totally. I guess maybe with that in mind, right, that I feel like so often when we're talking about cybersecurity and we're talking about AI and cyber, we're thinking of major corporations, big banks, those who are flushed with cash and have hopefully have up-to-date technology suites. But there are going to be a range of people who maybe are in the audience, who are going to be listening to this later, who maybe are organizations that are just trying to get their bosses to sign off on like investments in MFA versus 2FA, things like that. If you are someone who is like watching this. What is maybe the one thing that they should be looking at investing in the AI cyber defense world to fend off many of the threats that you guys just laid out here?
Yeah, maybe not. So one is, I would say like, hey, fundamentally, I think you want to look at, good AI versus bad AI. And, abnormal is a central casting character in that. But, there are other pieces that will evolve. I mean, I think if you just look at security operations centers, which, large enterprises deploy, and there are many security analysts sitting in there, the technology layers there are going to get completely, they're going to evolve very, very fast. So, like, I would say that's one other area, and most enterprise teams understand this very well today and are looking at new things coming in those areas.
Totally.
Yeah, so maybe, yeah.
Perfect.
Can I give kind of a controversial take just to make it more fun?
Love it.
So I think there's like very obvious things we talked about, right?
Right.
The tools people use every day,
Yeah.
MFA, identity management, endpoints,
Yeah.
email security, really important. What I'd say is like too much of the cybersecurity industry is actually focused on infrastructure. And my kind of view, which I would say most will disagree with, is that I think infrastructure actually becomes more secure with AI. And I think protecting people is actually going to be, the most important thing in the future. So you think about people, right? They've always been vulnerable and accessible. If you took the last 10 cybercrime articles in the news, probably 8 of them was like some person did something they shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
I think the AI tools that criminals will use are better suited towards improving their attacks against people. So I think anything where a person can be tricked, whether it's through email or text message or some prompt in Salesforce, that's going to be, I think, like the new surface area. And I think as an industry, cybersecurity is very far behind, right? Most companies are protecting IT infrastructure. There's very few organizations that are focused on protecting people. And we've all seen like phishing training, right?
Yeah.
No one, I'm sure this audience thinks that's super effective. I can tell you the 100 Fortune 500 customers I have, none of them think it's effective, right? It's more of a compliance thing.
Yeah.
Like that can't be our best defense as a civilization against, the AI-powered social engineering attacks. So I think that as an industry, we need to improve how we think about protecting people because they're all, businesses can't work unless people are talking to each other. We have to put some trust in digital communication.
Fundamentally, I mean, it's people accessing applications, right? I mean, and that's basically, that's the layer.
Yeah.
More focused.
And so I think like the next area is going to be phone calls, right? And my guess is when there's a huge, cybercrime attack in 12 months that kind of wakes everyone up, it's not going to be the firewall was misconfigured or like someone plugged in a USB drive. It's going to be an AI-generated deepfake, joined the Zoom meeting, and tricked someone to doing something they shouldn't be doing. And that interactive avatar was the cause of like some big problem. So I think that's going to be the future.
Yeah. I'm going to sneak in one very quick question before we're bum rushed off the stage. In this fight, I'm wondering at what point, I think it's fair to say right now, criminals have the edge for all the reasons that you guys just laid out. I don't know if there's a marker that you can give, like 1 year, 2 years, something like that, as to when the investments that defenders are making will start to pay off in this fight against like AI and AI. Like at what point do the scales start to tip very quickly?
Yeah, I would say I'm probably less optimistic in the near term that things are going to get better. I'm optimistic in the long term, like or in the longer term, just that hey, as these technologies evolve, I think there's a lot of room for opportunity for these layers to improve. But in the short to mid term, I'm not optimistic things are going to get better. I mean, I'll just for the average organization.
Totally.
Similar to Asheem. I mean, obviously things aren't working super well right now, right?
Yeah.
If you look at any chart of cybercrime, it's up and to the right. I guess the question is, when does that at least flatline or maybe start going down? I think it's not in the next 3 years. I think we have a lot of work to do as a civilization, and the criminals are advancing a little bit faster than the good guys, and so we got some work to do.
Awesome. Well, on that cheery note, Asheem, Evan, thank you so much, and thank you to our crowd for being here.
Thank you, Sam.
Great.
Well, thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks, Sam.
Thanks.
Yeah.